Hi, you're very welcome to the Racing Room with AK Bets as America celebrates President Donald Trump for the second time. If the first time wasn't bad enough, we're all pretty happy here, particularly Anthony Kanunskas, who made an absolute fortune trading between Harris and Trump. I got it completely spectacularly wrong, AK, but how was the week in the US elections?
Yeah, you and everybody else, you to be honest with you, there wasn't. There's a lot of retrospective. Trump was the biggest certainty of all time, but that wasn't the case all the way up to and plenty of time on into Tuesday as well. So yeah, our pricing strategy there was to go best price both candidates for as long as we could, and that went well for us mainly because the UK-based audience that we've attracted seemed to favour Kamala Harris, which was really, really good for us, obviously. From a personal point of view, apart from what we won on the event, just our strategy around pricing and marketing, we were really happy to find out that despite having technically the worst position on Oddschecker, we had the highest amount of clicks on Oddschecker's politics page in September, October, and the start of November, which was part of our aim, which was, to be honest with you, I'm really quite proud of that, to be honest with you. And yeah, and then I went to bed about 12 o'clock. I was in London with my politics guy, and he stayed up till about 4:15, but he said it was done an hour and a half probably prior to that. And I woke up in the bed about 7 a.m. to Donald Trump just being no offers, basically. So from a trading point of view, very good.
Amazingly, he got the same number of votes really as 2020. There wasn't a huge upsurge that was kind of painted a picture that he galvanized this new support base, but seemingly just Kamala Harris did not, Harry, incentivize anybody to come out and vote for her. So Donald Trump did what he did and does always, but this Democrat swing they were hoping for never materialized. It was amazing, really.
Yeah, it is. I remain of the view. It is interesting. I read an article by a guy who rung telephones for the Harris campaign, and America is going to struggle to elect a female president, in my view, and that's basically what he was saying. Is the main feedback he got was not about any policy; it was people going, "Oh, come on, do you seriously expect a woman to be able to run this country?" So they put two women up against him, and they've both lost. I would be not saying it's right at all, but I'd be surprised if the Democrats think it's a good idea to put another woman up against. Well, Trump can't run again, but can't run
Well,
again
you can't
yet.
run again
Can't
as
run
big
again
plan,
yet.
Harry.
Yeah. You may not need to run if you dispense with annoying features of democracy like elections. You might not need to run.
Hey, Vladimir, my old pal. What is it you have going on there that you've been president for 48 years, and how can I swing it in the US? Like,
yeah. Anyway, we'll see. But I just the Democrats dropped the ball, didn't they?
yeah, no, big time. TC, if I said to you, Donald Trump or Boris Johnson, which would you go for?
What are you doing with them?
Just yeah, anything.
It's the old joke, isn't it? You know, Donald Trump, Boris Johnson, one bullet, you just shoot yourself. What I don't know if you saw it. There was a fascinating, this French guy won tens of millions, didn't he? Betting on Trump. Yeah. He came out and said he went by what he classed as a neighbours poll. He said nobody directly would admit to supporting Trump, but so they asked the question, what do you think your neighbour would vote for? And that's how.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And I thought I read that article and I thought there's a lot of logic to that, isn't there? It's like voting for Tories at the last election of what they've done for the previous 14 years. I thought it was a really cute way of doing it. I don't think. Yeah. I don't know if it's holds any water, but I read it and I thought
it's definitely interesting. I also think just in general, my general principle is just to respect money in general. And every time betting odds like that interesting Iowa poll a couple of days before, which when you actually dig into it, there's actually nothing there.
Did you see what a French guy? I presume it wasn't with you, AK. A French guy had 40 million on Trump at something.
That's the guy I was saying.
That's the guy Tony's on about.
Oh, yeah, that's the guy, is it? That's the guy.
The same thing. Yeah, but yeah, like it's respect money, and if you're putting that kind of money down, there's usually something behind it. There's not many whales about these days that don't really know what they're doing. So Yeah, it was like I was saying, it's just interesting that every time the market swung towards Kamala Harris, it was the market quickly corrected and bet back towards Trump, to be honest with you. But it was interesting, even just we're a small part of that, very, very small part of it. But on the day, all the money was for her. We couldn't lay him at an arb, basically. Nobody wanted to back him. So it was very bizarre.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. That's the last time we'll talk US politics for at least 4 years. I can promise you that on the podcast. Right. We're recording this late on Monday because I made a complete balls today. I had an absolute horrific day from start to finish. So it's entirely my fault. And I owe a big debt of gratitude to my team who have rallied around to suit me on this 9 o'clock on Monday evening. So thank you, team. And I do appreciate it. But we're coming a little bit late. I guess we should mention Michael Stoute's last ever race, TC. I got a couple of texts off friends of mine who like a punt. And they said, listen, this horse is late. It's his last ever race in Nottingham. It's going to win. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Just on the your late show, I was old Wingnut Lineker's quit today, isn't it? I saw Star Sports have got some betting on who's the next match of the day presenter. I've just backed you because you love a late night, don't you? So
I do, yeah.
You know,
what price is Blogger?
I don't think yeah. I don't think my Saturday night custom would fit in with having to stay sober on matches of the 80s.
I don't follow football, but they've got the guy who shot John Lennon as favourite, Mark Chapman. I thought that was quite bizarre. He must be doing it from behind bars in the US.
And from beyond the grave.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Did he get killed when he was shooting John Lennon? Did he? Oh, right.
No, I think he's dead.
How was he? Anyway,
so what did you think of Michael Stoute's? A little bit disappointing that not everyone gets the perfect send off. TC, we don't all get to march off into the sunset with a glorious victory at our side. But look, that's racing, I suppose.
Yeah, it's look. Obviously, it's been planned out for a few months now since he first notified that he was going to quit at the end of the year. I think Nottingham extended an invitation for him to go there with his last runner, and he declined it. So that might have given you an inkling that he didn't particularly feel his horse was going to win. But yeah, like I said, he's a great, and he's gone now, and a few other people like John Gosden are picking up some of his horses. So yeah. So we'll see how that plays out. And another notable retirement was Jimmy Quinn. 40 years in the saddle, 57 years of years of age. These jockeys have got incredible longevity, haven't they? Whatever you think about them. Had his first ride at Doncaster in 1984, and he had his last ride at Doncaster in 2024. Yeah, so amazing that they can still.
Mick Cann went until he was 52 or 53, I think. Did he? Like when he was riding See the Stars in that last season, I think,
There was something on X today. There's still some active jockey in Australia who's 71. It's just madness.
Wow.
Madness.
I won't be back.
Chapman is not dead. I've just looked it up, Tony. I stand corrected.
I didn't think he was dead, to be honest with you. I was quite up there. I didn't think he was.
Yeah. No, I immediately regretted having said it. So I looked it up.
I'm pretty sure I already had an appeal coming up.
He's dead. He's been very quiet for a number of years. But he is.
I stand by the fact he's a bad 5-4 shot, regardless.
Okay, listen, we have to talk about Jeriko De Reponet yesterday at Sandown, TC, because this caused an awful lot of, I guess, annoyance from punters. Some were downright angry about it as well. He was odds on, drifted like a barge in the run up to the race. He was late down to the start by about 10 minutes. Then a couple of unusual, peculiar jumps, shall we say. But the betting to this is curious, and you have a better handle on this than I will. What do you make of what happened yesterday?
Well, I didn't pay any attention to Sandown betting. I just didn't look at the racing on Sunday. But the actual drift on the day from the show wasn't that bad. It was 8-15 to 8-11, but someone put up a Betfair graph saying he was trading around 2-9 at some point, but that could have been for pennies, so you don't know. But he was a lot shorter than the opening show on course of 8-15. But what happened is apparently he played up badly, couldn't really saddle him. Nicky Henderson said it was like trying to saddle a lion. So they took him, I think Nico de Boinville took his saddle off, walked back to the stables, and everyone just thought he was going to be withdrawn. Then 10 minutes later, he came out, went down to the start, literally about 10-15 minutes late. Everyone was waiting for him. The vet signed him off, coming from the stables and at the start, but then he proceeded to balloon a couple of fences, made a really bad mistake, and it was pulled up. So everyone was putting two and two together and possibly coming up with four, maybe more accurately five, because I tend to think it was coincidental. But when you've got a horse that's being checked out for that long, punters kind of like
Yeah.
tend to smell a rat, don't they? And you're not, that horse wasn't going to be backed on the strength of that delay. It was only going to drift, and it wasn't a monumental drift. I mean, I checked the Betfair SP, and the Betfair SP was 1.81. So we're not dealing with, people falling over themselves to lay the horse. But yeah, it was bad. My main problem is, I called it the kind of like the weekend factor. When if this happened during a weekday, I think the BHA would have been much more on top of this. If I was the BHA, I would have got the betting details out there. I would have definitely got a timeline of the vets out there. And what you'll find is on the BHA stewards report, it was entirely just inadequate. So when you get that level of speculation, you've got to try and quell it. So I would have put down, like I said, a betting and vets timeline, and go from there. What the horse did on the track, he just jumped. He jumped really badly on his chasing debut. So I think it could have been handled much better by the authorities.
Did you take any money on it, AK?
Nothing outside the ordinary, to be honest with you. Like when I saw, like I had Sunday off, so it was children's play zone in it again. But like when I saw the story on Twitter and someone flagged it to me, 2 to 9, 8 to 11, I sent it on to the lads, and then after quickly looking at it myself, it was similar to Tony. Any price pre-show you can take with a pinch of salt these days. Like there's just the paper thin markets. I wouldn't even anyone referencing a pre-show price it's fairly pointless. Like the period of interest here is the 5 minutes to the off. That's just the same with absolutely every race these days. Like you're saying Betfair SP 181. I'm always intrigued to look at place markets as well, because if something fishy is going on, I always imagine that it's probably more prudent to be laying at the shorter prices in some of these markets. And then you're talking chasing debut. I think that'll affect the place market anyway. So like I didn't really see anything in the betting patterns after digging into it. But I think from again agreeing with Tony from a visuals point of view and from a BHA response point of view, I think there's so much, and I think it's probably inaccurate in this case, but there's so much noise that I think it makes sense for the BHA to be a hell of a lot more proactive in these cases. And I also think punters tend to think, you do get the odd punter saying that bookmakers must love this and stuff like that. But bookmakers want races that they can price in confidence, and that's less and less these days as it is anyway. But bookmakers and punters are aligned here, and I think that from a response, I think there's nothing to see. And from a response time point of view, I think the BHA just has to be a bit quicker for this stuff.
Just one other point on that. At pretty much the same time, there was a horse called Fallon Glory over in Ireland.
Or an Elliott's horse.
Again, a chasing, I think it was his chasing debut as well. He was opened up 2 to 7 on the show. He drifted all the way out to 4 to 6 and it won. So people only tend to remember.
Was that on the back of Marine National's poor performance, maybe, was it?
No, not really. I think two entirely separate issues. Again, it was a 4-runner race. 2 JP horses were backed against Fallon Glory. So it might have been, in a small field when one horse is being backed from 3 to 1 to 7 to 4, the favourite has got to drift. So I don't know exactly the dynamic that went on there, but I will just underline the fact is people only, if for example Fallon Glory had jumped like a snooker table, then everyone would have been jumping on that as well. But there's 2 sides to every betting story, and there was some kind of like symmetry there.
Yeah, what did you make of Marine National, TC? Because like obviously a lot of anticipation about his comeback. He's still a favourite among racing fans, but it does seem like this wind issue is going to haunt him, and I don't think we're going to see the horse that won the Supreme 2 years ago.
No, trainer came out and said he was satisfied enough with the run and said it's still on course for the champion chase, but yeah, he's light years away from the horse who was such a short price favourite for the Arkle pretty much this time last year, isn't it? So yeah, I think he's got to be disappointed no matter what he says in public.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very disappointing, really. But look, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Stay with the jumps for a moment, if we can. Al Dancer was a very popular winner over the weekend in the Badger Beer. Won very handsomely as well, of 154, I think, and a big enough price. But a lot of people seem to have backed it.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot shorter, big drifter in the run to the race. That was a stunning 10-length win all the way win. And that's probably not far off the best staying chase performance from an English horse for quite a while. I know Al Dancer always goes well when fresh, so that there's got to be some kind of skepticism there that he can spring from that. But yeah, I mean, he'll be rated in the mid 160s after that. So yeah, and that's bang up there with a very average staying chasing crop over here.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw Bryony Frost was ITV made a big fuss about this. Obviously, a win for her dad, and at Exeter, her home track as well. She's back from France. She's gone back over now. I don't know what to make of all this, TC. To be honest with you, like it's kind of shoved down our throats if you're watching the TV. This narrative, this storyline, but I don't know what to make of the whole thing. To be honest,
it's funny, isn't it? Because she's clearly very popular with the crowds, and I know, like I say, it was a family affair down there, etc. And there's always been a lot of a kind of like ITV loving with Bryony Frost, but you know that's set against how she thinks she was treated, and she wasn't supported by trainers after the Robbie Dunn affair there. So I think a lot of people deep down think she was quite badly done to, and obviously, but now she's picked up a good job with the double green over in France, and where she gets an allowance for being a female. Not a lot of people like that, but it's a fact, and she's exploiting it to full effect over there. So yeah, it's a fair play to her. I mean, like I said, she does get up people's nose because she is a bit over emotive and a bit flowery after she gives you chapter and verse in every interview after a winning ride. But that got up, that went down like a lead balloon with some people. But no, fair play to her. Yeah, mate. Like I said, I was actually watching the ITV coverage here. We'll come on to that in a moment. No, she came across very well, and yeah, perhaps she's kind of like she's found a niche over in France, away from the kind of light spotlight over here.
yeah. Look, they did make a big deal of it on ITV, and I understand why as well. Like, she does divide opinion an awful lot, and there seems to be a lot of people in racing who just won't go near her at all. But you referenced ITV's coverage. What specifically took your kind of attention?
Well, yeah, I mean, we might as well touch upon it now because it was obviously she won on that Exeter card where there was a lot of non-runners, and which resulted in a walkover on ITV, and it was just a bit farcical. But my main issue with it is all these trainers taking horses out on perfectly good ground, and the Times backed it out that it was good ground. It wasn't fast ground. ITV brought up, talking about welfare. You had trainers talking about the safety issue of racing on good ground. And we'll just, the media and horsemen and horsewomen are shooting themselves in the foot with this narrative. I mean, you can actually shoot me for saying narrative, actually. But I just hate the idea that, you can't run on good ground because it's not safe or there's a welfare issue. If something happens down the line, and we will be racing on fast ground soon at some point, then you are giving the antis all the ammo you need. And if you're on record as saying there's a welfare issue or a safety issue of racing on good ground, and take away the ridiculous nature of walkovers in this country, just think you're just asking for trouble. And I think the media in particular need to pull up trainers. I mean, I was watching Saturday's racing as well. Harry Durham was saying at Wincanton, oh, they've watered there, so it's safe ground. I mean, it's good ground as well. I just find it infuriating that presenters and pundits don't pick up on these trainings and say, what do you mean good ground isn't safe? I do find it infuriating.
It's a real tough one. They have to allude to it. Like, I can only imagine like when you're doing a live TV broadcast as well, and you've got imagine given like half an hour to fill like dead time. Like, how do you fill it? Like, so it's kind of it's a tough one, I think, in that respect for ITV. But yeah, I think I do agree with your overall synopsis there that mentioning ground as a negative there is not ideal in that.
Yeah, and especially when you have horses running like immediately after, the ground seems to be okay for some horses, but not for others. It's just like it just annoys, it frustrates racing fans, I think, because they're
What I will say is, I mean, there's stories again tonight that Gordon Elliott say he's got a massive backlog of horses because of the good ground. You've got Foals just already kind of like cancelling a fixture again because the course just hasn't had any rain for any time. And over there, it's just as bad in Ireland as it is in England. You've had a very dry period, uncommonly high temperatures, and they're just struggling to get their horses out. I can understand the frustration, and I can understand the pressure that's put on clerks of the course, but you can do that without all this emotive language, which could come back to bite you on the arse.
yeah, absolutely. Before we leave the racing, then we have to mention the Melbourne Cup. 90-1 winner, Knight's Choice, Robbie Dolan, a lovely fella from Kildare, good singer as well. He was in The Voice Australia, did pretty well, and yeah, it was a great story, really. I mean, I don't know how many people backed it, but it's brilliant for him. Delighted for him.
Yeah, he's got as good a voice as you after a few, isn't he? You?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Jesus, yeah. Right, and that's the racing done. A couple of stories then to bring you from the week just gone. And we're going to touch on the IHRB movement of monies, Harry, for a second. And you might just pick this up if you can, because we can't say a huge amount about this, but reading the report into what has happened financially with the IHRB over the last couple of years, the handshake that was given to their former chairman, who was paid over and above what he should have been to go and leave the association. You have basically money's been taken from a charity to kind of balance the books and cover up for a lack of cash elsewhere. Like, the whole thing is a bit of a mess, to be honest with you. I know Richie Forrester has been very critical of it. Ruby Walsh wrote it in the Irish Examiner here as well, that the IHRB, they just need to get their act together because this does not read well.
Yeah, I think beyond anything else, it's really embarrassing for them. There are two sort of central elements to the embarrassment. One is that the previous CEO of the IHRB was awarded a sort of payoff as he left, or a retirement payment as he left, which seems to be significantly in excess to what he was entitled to. There doesn't seem to be much of an explanation as to why that was, but perhaps it's a legitimate reason, who knows. But more concerningly is it seems to have contributed to a lack of cash flow, which led to the previous, I think, chief financial officer deciding that the way to deal with that was to borrow without telling anyone, or we think without telling anyone, quite a substantial sum of money from a charity that that holds money for the benefit of jockeys. It was paid back several months later, but it is very embarrassing. And to have a report from Mazars come out and basically tell them, the basics of corporate due process is a pretty humiliating experience, I suggest. But it is quite extraordinary that if a solicitor had done that, that would be end of career, basically. If you dip into money that isn't yours just to ease a flat cash flow crisis, even with every intention of paying it back, you're in real trouble. So yeah, it's hard I don't understand the sort of the corporate structure between the IHRB, HRI, and the Turf Club, but and there seems to be issues with who knew what and who got approval when. But I think tails are firmly between legs at the moment, by the looks of things.
Absolutely, and the whole thing does not read well at all, as you say.
Would it really be career ender for a solicitor?
For a solicitor, yeah, if you went anywhere near client funds to ease a cash flow problem, That would be very close to an end of career. Look, it would depend how much it is, obviously, but I mean, it's very worrying that it was a charity, because the charities are subject to their own rules, and it's almost a little bit odd that the charity was being run by the IHRB. Over here, it's dealt with by a trust called PRIS, which is separate from the BHA, and the idea is that it is supposed to be its own separate function. I just think that it reeks of everyone just being too close to one another, basically.
Welcome to Ireland.
Welcome to Ireland. There's more to Ireland than this, right?
We'll make us a squeaky clean when it comes to ring-fencing clients' funds, aren't they?
I've got no accounts to get stuck into over here. So.
While you're on a roll, Harry, Chelmsford was pretty close to a pretty major lawsuit, wasn't it, the other day, when the starting stalls were left out on the track and the horses, by some miracle, didn't crash into them.
That was pretty extraordinary, and according to one of the riders, what stopped it was the starter, and the tea lady running backwards down the track waving. It's like railway children when they stop the train, pulling their frilly knickers off and waving them. Look, there's got to be a way of communicating with jockeys when they're on the track that is better than sending Jenny Agata running down the track waving her bloomers. Whether it's electronic signs or klaxons or whatever, it does look pretty prehistoric.
Is it a stupid idea? Like, probably is, and I'm not considering stuff, and I thought of this 2 seconds ago. Is there no way they can have an earpiece, like some kind of?
Well, funny you say that. Didn't they try to introduce that as a kind of selling point? They'd have trainers talking to the jockeys.
I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't go that far. But,
we should have bookmakers talking to jockeys. Actually, that would be a good idea. Yeah. I don't know what the sound is, but you'd have thought a klaxon would work of some description, close enough to the track.
There's a guy who has a lot of horses in France. I think James Finch on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
he runs a lot of horses there, and I think he had his 25th winner today. Actually, I think he might be a solicitor or something as well. But he said in France, in similar situations, well, not similar, but in these kind of dramatic situations, they have a flashing lights and sirens for jockeys to stop. I mean,
it needs to be something
almost like sort of I think that's actually been used in other contexts, like fire alarms, the sirens. It doesn't seem like rocket science, does it? But perhaps there's a problem with it. Perhaps it spooks the horses. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I'd imagine. I think it has to be something that doesn't make a noise for the horse, I'd imagine.
Yeah. If you actually look at the coverage there, I mean, if you actually see the race, it's unbelievable that
how is that not carnage? I know.
They've all managed to pull up, because have you seen full starts before where horses literally can't just if it's a 5 furlong race and they come out of the stalls, and even in jumps racing, they take ages to pull them up.
It happened in greyhound racing once. I'm trying to think what happened as they came around the corner. I remember the trap staying on the track and the hair driver not twigging it. But it again somehow avoided absolute disaster.
I wonder if they might put in rules about whether starting stalls can be on the track and they can't be at the end of a bend.
Yeah, it was interesting. I think you pulled it up, didn't you? You just said the course said it's not.
Yeah, they're not directly responsible, but if they're not responsible, who is?
Yeah,
like it's
hard
crazy.
to understand that.
That's a bit of a bizarre one.
My advice to anyone who takes my advice on this show, so very few people, to back Fastorslow for the King George is out before it even gets going, Tony, because Martin Brazel confirmed last week that he hasn't even been entered for the race that he said he was specifically going to go and run in. So it's frustrating when that happens, I guess. You're taking a chance.
I have it in a treble with City of Troy and Kamala Harris, actually.
Yes, and Vauban for the 4th time. Right, yeah. Don't listen to me, kids. But yeah, look, I just made the point, like, why would you go out of your way to say he's going to run the King George and then just not even enter him? And the horse is sound. There's no issue there. It's very frustrating when that happens.
You've got to take everything trainers say in interviews with a pinch of salt. I mean, I don't take any notice of them other than bizarrely running plans. As an anti-post, if you're an anti-post punter, you want to know what targets they're going for. And, we're all adults, targets do change. But this one was quite bizarre because I think he was second favourite for Kempton. And the horse is fine. They've just had a change of heart. Why that is, I don't know. Perhaps the horse has got a problem and he just doesn't want to admit it. But for the horse not to be kept in the race, which doesn't cost a lot of money, it's not like, if, for example, he wins his prep race, he'll have to pay a lot of money to supplement him back into the race. So he
That
can.
was weird, and he alluded to that as well. It's very weird.
Did he say that? Did he?
Yeah, he alluded to supplementing at a later stage. Like it made no sense. Like to me, yeah,
No.
it's frustrating. I think for punters, it's definitely frustrating. He was probably the best backed horse on our website for that race and any anti-post race coming up. Basically, it's bizarre. Like there was plenty of people that got stuck in, and the move was industry wide and machine wide as well. I think there's been some money done there.
Yeah.
You'll be doing a justice refund, obviously, Anthony. Yeah.
Justice refund.
That's the two fingers for everyone who's listening on a podcast.
You've got all that. You've got all that Trump money sloshing around.
Cieren Fallon gave the Aussie stewards the two fingers himself after his $100,000 fine on Lake Forest. He said, "Yes, I'm guilty of interference, but the punishment is way too." What's that word? Way too larrow. Jeez, I've never heard of that. It's ridiculous. It's horrendous, and I think it's a bit stupid. Large. Okay, right. I cut off. It got the O with the G, and we cut the rest of it off. But yeah, Harry, like he obviously feels strongly about this, but like calling the whole practice, the disciplinary system, a bit stupid isn't the wisest thing in the world, is it?
Look, if you're acting for him, you'd say, Cieren, please don't say things like that. It's not helpful. But he's had a rough year with Stefano and Brittany's boyfriend, of course, dying, and I think that puts things into a bit of perspective sometimes. And frankly, if that's what you think, why not say it every now and again? It shouldn't be what decides his appeal. But look, there are definitely panels in racing that would look very dimly on that and give him a bit of a lecture. But it really oughtn't to be the end of the world.
It's a serious kind of appeal, isn't it? Because he got a month ban and he got $100,000 US.
Yeah, it was a whacking great fine. Yeah,
so absolutely. It was $100,000, but it was like, didn't he win 260 grand himself or something? Like he's not going to do 100 grand in.
I think more just as important. He got a month ban, and I think that will have to be reciprocated worldwide, wouldn't it, Harry?
Yeah.
So that is, and when you consider this is tainted Middle Eastern time money in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia and stuff like that, it's could be very, very significant there. And
he's still net 100K up. I'm sure he'd be all right.
He'd take the win, I think, for the penalty.
Yeah, I think for him, well, we alluded to last week that Tony Bloom might have helped him out with a 30 grand fine, but you can't help him with it.
So.
The HRI series that at one stage it looked like the four trainers who were excluded from it. This is 60 races next season for trainers who have a certain amount of winners and not above that. So Henry de Bromhead won't be there, Willie Mullins, Gordon Elliott. And yeah, it looks like it's going to go ahead. There was a threat of a legal challenge at one stage, TC, but obviously it's kind of penny review at the end of the season, but obviously they've got the go ahead to just go and do this now. I
think they're going to have 17 races, then they're going to review how it goes on. I'm not sure what the purpose of the review will be, because
I can tell you what the purpose of the review is. They are concerned. What they're doing is they are making sure that they have an argument that they are imposing the new rule in a reasonable way. And so that if it is challenged legally, what they can say is, no, we're doing this gently, incrementally, and we're testing whether it's for the good of the sport. We're not just throwing it out there. It's strategic, is my suspicion.
Yeah, I suppose there could be an element of, if these 60 races don't get hardly any runners, because numerically those four trainers would have normally provided a lot of the entrants, then I suppose that could be part of it. But I suspect
Yeah, I think that won't be a problem.
I didn't think that through, but it just goes to show that change in racing is, if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen so slowly because I think there's
Yeah.
I think there's about 1,400 races or something. Did I read in Ireland?
Yeah.
They're excluded from 60 of them, 17 before a review takes place, and and then you still get legal challenges. I mean, who'd be a regulator, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, 2 questions. It's short and sweet this week, guys, because I am just in a world of pain here. So thank you.
We got to sort out the French strikes.
Oh yeah, French strikes. Who cares? French, French strike over everything, man. They just strike over everything. You know?
I know, but you've got to admire them, haven't you? I mean, just like
yeah.
It's just a possible rising taxation on betting, and you get 10,000 of them out on the streets, including lead trainers and jockeys.
Yeah.
They don't have
trotters.
They don't have 20 different thoroughbred groups. They're just.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Is that they can do it under one umbrella.
Okay, Ben Keith wants to know: horse racing get 10% levy board of the bookies' gross profits. This was decided many years ago in Parliament, with the dogs being dealt with later. Never happened. What does greyhound board have to do to get the same compulsory levy? Harry, do you know anything about this?
Well, I mean, I think the answer is it's got to get the political support to do it, and I think it would be a very brave politician, I'm afraid, at the moment, to say I know what I want to bring to part. What pay bill I want to introduce today. It's a statutory levy for the sport of greyhound racing. I'd be quite surprised if that ever happens myself. It's a political question. I may be wrong. Ben has been a huge supporter of greyhound racing. I first worked with him when he was supporting Toaster under Lord Hesketh. I acted for the Hesketh family, doing all the agreements with Star Sports when they sponsored the Greyhound Derby, and it was Ben and Lord Hesketh were the good guys who saw a future in greyhound racing, but there were an awful lot of very powerful people in greyhound racing that were basically squeezing it for every drop they could find. This was, 2015, 2016, perhaps things have improved, but the statutory levy was just so far from just a million miles from the discourse in those days. I'd be quite surprised if it's a realistic prospect now. But look, I haven't been involved in greyhound racing for a few years, so perhaps I'm wrong.
Okay, great stuff. And then JP Constantine wants to know, Harry, have you ever raced your pheasants?
I haven't raced. That's not the sport that is used with pheasants. I'm afraid it's rather more bleak.
Yeah.
I know this is a quick fire podcast, but I was going to ask. I think we've touched upon it before about there was no fallers again in the Grand Sefton on Saturday, and it's following on from there were no fallers at all and 20 odd finishes in the Grand National in April. I mean, a lot of people were talking about how the National is just another handicap now. Obviously, it's down to 34 runners. I actually did watch that Grand Sefton. I actually did think it was quite a sad sight because literally it's pretty much impossible to fall because you just go straight through them. And I know there's, we have to be preemptive about things like that. I just wanted to know what people thought because surely I just thought it was quite sad watching it.
Yeah, the last couple of years for me, the Grand National is just boring. It's really, really boring. It's like, I don't know if it's my level of tipping, but my granny doesn't even bother watching it anymore. Like, it's just absolutely boring. Like, we all need to get on the Ida chase and start picking that up, I think. Like, it's the Grand National is just, they've killed it, haven't they? Like,
Well, I just wonder, what you worry about is they just did too much too quickly, because that changes needed to be made, but the speed of the changes and how much has changed in very few years. And the problem is you can't really change it back in this climate, so everything you do is set in stone for probably forever. So, and it's only going in one direction. And, I've said before this thing about getting excited, being really pleased that all the horses went round and no fallers. And you just think, well, why are you putting up fences? If the aim is to stop the horses falling, Why are we putting up fences at all? It's just crazy that you know it's an argument that makes no sense at all.
Kevin Truesdale gave a talk recently at one
Yeah.
of the conferences, and they didn't rule out further changes. I mean,
Yeah, that's
what more can you? I mean, as much as it sounds really kind of like racing-y, I mean, part of the beauty of watching the Grand National, well, not beauty, the ugliness really, is kind of like people did tune in for
yeah.
a bit of carnage, for the want of a better phrase. And I know that's a quite unpalatable thing to say, but you know, if you've got a horse, if you've got no prospect of falling, and you know you have to do something ridiculous. I know a lot of horses unseated in the Grand National, but like I said, if it's an easier race than your normal park fences, which you see at Sandown at Kempton the last couple of days,
Well, and I think also the level of self-delusion afterwards of people going, oh, isn't it fantastic? The Grand National is, you know, this is the Grand National for the future. And you go, well, it's not the Grand National at all. And the real problem with that is it's actually a really important part of the public psyche's understanding and link with racing. And it isn't just a good thing that the Grand National is becoming a less interesting spectacle. It carries significant costs.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's Dave O'Reilly for AK Bets had jumped most of the fences these days. Like it's just not interesting at all. No, it's disappointing.
On that somber note, and apologies, it's a little bit of a somber podcast because you just about managed to get through it, lads. So thank you.
Well done, Hugh.
I promise I'll be back to myself next week. But thanks to all the team. Please download the AK Bets app if you want the latest offers across racing or any sport. And we will be back. I'll be promised to be a lot more cheerful and like my normal self next week. But thanks for grinning and bearing it this week. I will talk to you next week. Good luck.